And welcome back. So, as we see Biden getting caught up in their hypocrisy and what he calls others, he himself is. But second batch of classified Biden docs found at new location, classified documents. Second batch of classified documents belonging to President Biden was reportedly discovered by White House aides days after the discovery of documents from a former private office of the president's became public. New batch was found in a separate location from the first, citing a person familiar with the matter. First batch was found in a University of Pennsylvania office in Washington, D.C. that once belonged to Biden between his time as vice president and his 2020 presidential campaign. Since then, White House aides have been looking for additional classified documents in other locations. The White House did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Why would they? Earlier on Wednesday, Press Secretary sparred with reporters over the discovery of the first batch of documents, avoiding answers questions on why the administration didn't inform the public sooner when attorneys for Biden made the discovery on November 2nd, just 6 days ahead of crucial midterm elections. She said the situation was under review by the Department of Justice and would not comment on it further. It's just hilarious. Well, it's not really even funny at this point. But you can do what you like and say what you like if you're on one side of the argument. And if you're on the other side, you can't be a minority. You can't say the wrong thing. You can't piss off the wrong person. Or you go to jail, they kill you, or they cancel you. Or all three. But I see what they're doing. And when you read between the lines, you'd have to look no further than the book called The Laws of Power. I utilize this book almost every single day of my life, and it's never been a bad investment. But Law 15 strictly states, like I use this book and then I'll see what the enemy's doing. And basically it's almost foreshadowing to look at this book. There's two books, Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, who is actually Hillary Clinton's mentor, and then Laws of Power. But Law 15 strictly states crush your enemy totally. If one ember is left alight, no matter how dimly it smolders, a fire will eventually break out. More is lost through stopping halfway than through total annihilation. The enemy will recover and seek revenge. And we see Biden's presidency as just that. Is that when Trump had the Senate and Congress, of course Trump probably had a few ideas on what he wanted to do, but they wouldn't allow him to do it, would they? So Law 15 has something to do with Trump only getting one term, quote unquote, one term. But I did notice, so the rules for radicals, there's 12 of them. You could almost read these step by step and see the left's paradigm and how they act. I would say they follow this rule for rule, realistically. If you read all rules and see what they do on a daily basis, makes sense. But Rule 5, ridicule is man's most potent weapon. There is no defense. It's irrational. It's infuriating. It also works as a key pressure point to force the enemy into concessions. Pretty crude, rude, and mean, huh? They want to create anger and fear. We see this in the political spectrum, in the sense that the left has gone further left, the center moved left, and the right moved left. So now a traditional conservative from 40 years ago would look at one today and say they're either centrists or left. So I notice they use that rule quite often, but again, we see more hypocrisy. If Biden trips up and says something dumb, nobody says anything. But if Trump even like barely stumbles or drinks water weird, the whole world goes nuts. So it's just quite ridiculous. But moving on to something else. So a proposed gas stove ban threatens to devastate restaurant industry. This is the funny thing, is that the first world is actually quite clean. And I think Canada is even carbon negative. So they don't even produce enough emissions to overcome the amount of trees that they have, which is kind of funny. It seems like the only countries on earth that go along with this are the ones that are producing the least emissions or a clean amount of them. It's the third world that typically has no regulation, and China's no longer a third world country, but they don't seem to regulate. If you look at any of their cities' video footage, you can't even see into their cities. The pollution is so rampant. Yet they want to attack us and take all our stuff away. But we see it as it's really just Marxism, isn't it? It's class warfare. They want to bring about the destruction of the Western Empire, and it's a multi-pronged attack through destroying the nuclear family, de-industrializing the West, and they put red tape everywhere and carbon footprint stuff. Then our jobs get shipped elsewhere across the earth where they can clean up because, I mean, they don't have regulation. We do, which is kind of funny when you think about it. But getting back to this, you can't just replace gas with nothing. That's the funny thing about what they're doing, is that if you take away our technology, our current technology, which is fantastic as far as I'm concerned, natural gas in particular is fantastic. It's relatively cheap compared to electricity, although that's changing. It's still cheaper than electricity. Let's take a look at what this guy has to say. This will cripple the already crippled restaurant industry. And the funny thing is, they want to take away our current technologies, which are fantastic, and replace them with nothing or subpar tech. But let's take a listen.
So there are people in this world who use gas stoves for a living, and one of them is Stratus Morfogen, who owns a restaurant. He's the author of Be a Disruptor. He joins us to assess. Stratus, thanks so much for coming on. So you're a restaurant owner. This is not a luxury item to you. This is core to your business. First of all, would you obey a ban on gas stoves? And second, why are they superior to electric?
You know what it is, Tucker? For people that don't understand the restaurant industry, for 35 years, we've been attacked by everybody. We had organized crime in our industry in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. In the 2000s, we had corrupt Wall Street. And for the last 3 years, we've had government overreach. I mean, we've seen it during COVID. They did things, they never followed the science. And what's going on, what I heard the rumor about this last year. And what I'm hearing about today from the White House to Governor Hochul, that they want to make us, for new restaurant construction, use electric stoves. So let me explain it to you. We lose 40% productivity by using electric. By using electric, if they ever inquired with small business owners, I'll give them 3 pieces of advice. Get stronger filtration system, get a hood system that works, and basically train your staff on how to maintain it. But for 35 years, we continuously have obstacles in running our industry. And I got to tell you, Tucker, and I want to thank you for supporting small business. Since the last time I was on, you inspired me to write the book. And I got to tell you, because our journey is constantly being attacked. Like, we're vulnerable. And this is creme de la creme. Because I will tell you, this will destroy our industry just as bad as they attempted to do with COVID.
I mean, there's got to be a limit to what people are going to put up with. There has to be a red line. I would counsel mass disobedience in the face of tyranny in this case. I mean, do you think restaurant owners would obey? Why does Kathy Hochul have a right to tell you what kind of stove you have? She's an idiot.
Yeah, listen, I didn't obey Kathy Hochul with any of the mandates.
Good.
And I'm not going to obey Kathy Hochul now, because let me tell you something. With electric stoves, first of all, our bills will go 6 times higher. And then on top of that, our productivity drops. This isn't just going to hurt the restaurant hospitality industry. It's going to hurt real estate development. You remember, casinos, shopping malls, airports, residential towers, office buildings, they depend on us for the content. And if we don't develop the content for these big, this is our industry, for these big developers, well, guess what? This whole thing will collapse. They're not following science, and this is not following science. There are so many other ways, like we do. We don't allow our cooks to basically stand in smoke. We have a strong filtration smoke evacuation system. And this is what's needed if they want to go down this route.
The idea that people who send crack pipes to drug addicts are concerned about safety is like the most hilarious thing I've ever heard in my life. Ignore them, please.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. They're trying to destroy everything, seemingly on purpose as well. Like if you look at what they're doing, like with open borders, reckless spending, they're handing out money like it's going out of style. I think it's something like they printed more money in the last 3 years than they did in the last 100. And then the Ukraine aid, tens of billions of dollars worth of stuff. Well, the cities rot from inside out. Oh yeah, and the crime waves, mass theft, violence. And they care more about the Ukrainian border than they do about the American border. It's like, well, who's actually in charge here? But anyways, let's take a look at Biden a little bit more when it comes to the classified docs. Let's see what he has to say today.
When my lawyers were clearing out my office at the University of Pennsylvania, they set up an office for me, secure office in the Capitol. The 4 years after being vice president, I was a professor at Penn. They found some documents in a box in a locked cabinet, or at least a closet. And as soon as they did, they realized there were several classified documents in that box. And they did what they should have done. They immediately called the archives, turned them over to the archives, and I was briefed about this discovery and surprised to learn that there were any government records that were taken there to that office. But I don't know what's in the documents. My lawyers have not suggested I ask what documents they were. I've turned over the boxes. They've turned over the boxes to the archives, and we're cooperating fully with the review, and which I hope will be finished soon, and there'll be more detail at that time.
And let's finish with what Steve Harvey, he's obviously worried his kids may grow up soft. We didn't get demerits, we got a whooping. And so true it is. There's something, even though people look at the traditional way of life as something negative or has negative connotation or negative aspects to it, there was a reason for it. It was almost like a behavioral ecosystem. When you look at a farm, it has a specific ecosystem, and everything on the farm, even the animals, are selectively chosen to help the ecosystem thrive. But let's see what he has to say, because I agree with him, and I'm a bit concerned, not a bit, I'm quite concerned for the generations to come. Not only will they own nothing and like it, they seem like they'll just be shadows of their predecessors, which is not a good thing. The generations to come are supposed to excel the generations of the past. But now, the generations that exist now, 20 and under, and continuing, will gradually and surely, but slowly, be able to achieve less and less that their parents were able to. But let's, without further ado, let's see what he has to say.
You are such a successful guy. You're an icon. You've, done so many things. Now, we've talked a lot on this show about Nepo babies, nepotism, kids who come from really successful people. So I'd be so curious. I mean, you've got 7 kids. How do you
got 7 kids?
Yeah. He's a busy guy in every sense.
I didn't plan on any of my children.
But imagine if you had started.
No, I didn't do Planned Parenthood. A woman walked in and said, I'm pregnant, and I just had to deal with it. Because everybody's goal, just like yours, is to give your children a better life than the one you had.
Right. Yep.
That's your goal, that's our goal. Well, the thing is my kids get to start with a lot more than I had when I started.
Okay.
So my problem has been, how do I teach them the grit, the grind, and the hustle that I had to have to make it? How do I instill that in them?
Start slower.
And you can't.
How do you do it?
You can't.
Oh.
Because they just have too much to start. I started below the zero. They started with 25. So they don't need to know how to fight. I went to public school. I had to learn how to fight. I had a stuttering condition. I had to learn how to fight. My kids been in private school their whole life. They got a little uniform with a little crest on it. And, they get it. They get demerits.
Yeah.
We didn't get demerits. We got an ass whooping.
But it's so true. It's very true. And I have a graph here. I'll basically close with this graph. So first it starts with bondage, then faith, then courage, then community and abundance. And when you look at how the West was forged, you could see how it's gone through the cycle. Boom, boom, boom. Abundance could be argued was up into and including the early 90s when the deindustrialization really took hold and the borders opened. Then it became selfish, greed, dependency, and then back to bondage. I suspect we're right about here between greed and dependence, but definitely the downward slide, especially with the problem solving of the global leaders or the Western leaders in particular. Either they're straight up Satan worshippers or they're incredibly incompetent. Both are possible. However, my fear is the worst. But anyways, until next time.